Hi, this is Manjula Narayan, books editor, Hindustan Times, and today I have with me Yashika Dutt, who's written Coming Out as a Dalit, a memoir, and it is absolutely very gripping and very well written. So, Yashika, tell me, you said it took you 3 years to write this. But I mean, you've spoken about the spark that first led you to write it, and the Facebook post you wrote. And let's go over that just for the viewers. What made you write this book? Coming out as a Dalit, a memoir. And I know that you worked at Hindustan Times, and well, one likes to think that people don't think about caste, but we all know that they do. And you very effectively passed,
Yeah.
so, and you speak, you write, very well about that process, and which is what I found very interesting about the book. So, talk about what started you off.
Yeah, so when I was working with HT, I started here in 2011 and I came in as a fashion writer. And it was a safe space, it was a safe world because fashion is a kind of, it's an industry where nobody thinks you can be Dalit and write about fashion because it's inaccessible. It's if I'm being candid, it's a classist and it's mostly upper caste. We don't have that many Dalit designers, so to speak. If you want to be in the world of fashion, you need to have money, which is a given. And not many people talk about that. So when I was writing for fashion and with HT, nobody even thought, it didn't even occur to anybody that this person is anything but a rich, urban, middle class, upper caste person. So which is why it helped me pass so effectively. And that was one of the things that made me think in a different direction, that made me realize that I wanted to write about ideas that didn't need that accessibility with a class or a caste badge. And we were critiquing them. That didn't make a lot of sense. So I started searching for ideas that moved away from fashion, and then I applied to Columbia. And I think it was the best decision I could make. I didn't think in ways that I do now, and Columbia helped me with that, especially understanding about systems of oppression and how caste, race, class, these are not just ideas, they are proper systems, and that's how the world and society functions, especially India. So I kind of had an awakening in the classroom, and I felt that the life that I'd been living so far, which was being Dalit but pretending really hard to be upper caste, there was something fundamentally wrong with the idea. And the fact that I had to lie, that the fact that I had to pass to be an upper caste person wasn't correct. And it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my shame to bear. It was not something that I had to be worried about, but I was. And when I realized that truth, it just became really clear to me that I have nothing to be embarrassed about being Dalit, except that I was in the US. So it also didn't matter as much because I was living in New York. I was not being asked what my caste was every second day, which when I was in Delhi, not in office, of course, and not in urban spaces, but on the road trying to find a landlord or trying to find a house, for example, or even basic things, just standing next to somebody in a queue and they start talking to you. And the second question they're going to ask is, what's your caste?
Really?
That happened to me a lot. And when I was younger,
What's your caste? Like that?
they used to say, बेटा आपकी caste क्या है वैसे? पंजाबी हो गए आप तो? आप दत्त लिखते हो? So they're not pointedly asking what your caste is, but they're roundabout. The question is, you're a Dutt, but are you Bengali? And I had no real answer. I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm not Bengali, but I do write that, and there's a reason because it's not a real caste name. And I was like, yeah, I'm Bengali, but I don't speak Bengali. And I had this treasure trove of lies that I pulled out depending on what the situation was when this question was asked. And when I moved to the US, I didn't have to answer that anymore. And at the same time, I was going through this realization, this awakening that there's nothing wrong with being Dalit, being untouchable. That is not my fault. And at that same time, when I graduated and I heard about, I've extensively spoken about this, when Rohit passed away and he took his own life, it was like a mirror to my life, what it could have been.
Rohit Vemula.
Rohit Vemula, yes, Rohit Vemula. What my life could have been if I didn't have the relative privilege that I do, if I wasn't born in a family which insisted on being educated and passing as upper caste above everything else. I was, from a very young age, my parents told me that you have to speak really good English, you have to write really, really well, because only then people will stop questioning what your caste is. They didn't, but I was able to pass. And in Rohit Vemula's life, I could see my own very easily. If I didn't have those opportunities, it could have been me. I could have been that person. So there were certain parallels that reached out to me, except he was not trying to hide.
Yes.
And he was openly living his truth. He was fighting for it, and he was proud. And I didn't need to know his life story to even know that. I just read his letter. I saw his Facebook profile, and I was like, this guy, he's so much younger than me. He was 26. I was 30 at the time. And he's out there with no fear, with very little to fall back on. And here I am. I had the opportunity to pass on my life, to work in these great media houses, to work at HT. Now I graduated from Columbia, which is from a really good course. And what am I doing with this, with all this privilege that I've acculturated? How am I using that? And I thought that if this guy, this Rohit Vemula, if he can do something at that level, I certainly can. I mean, living in New York, knowing everything that I do, maybe I can make a difference. So I decided to start Documents of Dalit Discrimination, because the more I read about his letter, what struck me was that he'd written in English. And I didn't know any Dalits who wrote in English till then. And of course, that's partly my fault, because there are Dalits who've written in English extensively. I just wasn't aware. So I realized that there are other people like me. There are people like him. There are people like me who are hiding their identities and living different lives. In every newspaper, in every media outlet was, what do Dalits do? They are they don't have talent. They are not worthy of reservation. They don't have merit, or they're very corrupt. So, and I realized that wasn't the entire story. That was not the whole narrative. There were people like me. There were people like who I'd seen, had grown up with in my family, Rohit, other people that I knew of. That was not our only story, and nobody was talking about that story. I wanted to do something, because this guy had given his life wanting to stand up for what he thought was right. And the least I could do was do my job, which was, as a journalist, bring those stories to the forefront. But I realized I can't ask people to share their stories of being Dalit unless I do that myself. Nobody knew I was Dalit. And I said, if I want to ask people to share their ideas, their stories, I have to start with mine first. And I felt scared. I was sitting in this coffee shop in New York, in Chelsea, in this chair, and I was like, okay, I think I can do this. I'm far enough, and I can tell my story to people. So I wrote this Facebook note where I talked about my grandfather learning to read and write by scrawling a stick in the mud. And I was really excited. Once I decided that I wanted to do this, it was exciting because I couldn't imagine the reactions that would come out on Facebook. People would be shocked, scandalized. This person, they couldn't imagine. She's Dalit, she's untouchable. She does not fall in the image of what we think a Dalit to be. And I just really, at that point, I just wanted to see that reaction. I just wanted to see how people would react, what it would feel like, especially for somebody who really believes in caste, who believes that they're superior because they're born in a certain caste than untouchable people. And somebody like me kind of tricked them. And I was excited at this delicious possibility of having bested a casteist person. You thought you were so superior. You didn't even know I was, friends with you maybe, worked with you, ate around you, and same utensils as you. All those biases that you had, I managed to break them, and here I am. So you couldn't, it was not your choice. You couldn't out me, I'm outing myself. So at that point, I felt really powerful. And I published that note and I said, this is it. Everything's going to change from now on because everybody knows who I really am. And it did. And as we know, the note took a life of its own. And I heard narratives where people were saying, how is she Dalit and she went to Columbia? How did that happen? And what they didn't know is that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar studied at Columbia and finished several degrees from there.
Okay, so you know, I mean, while I was reading the book, I was thinking, my God, it must have been such a strain to constantly be, trying to pass for, upper caste. What is powerful about the book is that it, even if the reader is not Dalit or doesn't come from, assumes that he or she lives in a caste-free world or comes from a space which is caste free, which increasingly everybody knows doesn't exist in India.
Yeah.
You can fool yourself that it exists, but it doesn't. So it kind of holds up a mirror to other people who might not share your background as well, about their own hypocrisies and their own blindnesses. So how did you I don't know how you achieved that.
This has been the single biggest, most powerful narrative of my life, where when I was younger, my mom constantly said, you have to be like them. This is very important. If you want to be successful, if you don't want to be discriminated, you have to learn how these people live. And even then, when I was very young, there was a clear difference in how we lived, even though my father was probably doing the same job as someone else who was upper caste. We were living in the same locality with other upper caste people. But there was a very clear difference in how our culture was and how the upper caste culture is. And I understood that I didn't have access to that. And the only way I could have access to understanding how upper caste people live is either pretending to be upper caste or, let's say, joining a boarding school, which is why we grew up with a lot of economic hardship. But my mom insisted that you have to study in a good boarding school, not just a day school, a boarding school where you live with these girls and you see how they talk and what matters to them. For example, religion sometimes matters to them, or certain traditions, especially in Rajasthan, the way of doing things. So these things mattered a lot because these little tricks and nuances would make my passing that much more effective. It would make the lie believable. And it was very easy for me to write that because this is what I've been doing all my life. Now I'm 33 years old and I've been out for the past 3 years and I'm very comfortable with who I am. But when I was younger, I wasn't. It was either, okay, let's not be that dark, and that was something I could change. And I'm not dark.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, I was. And that was a constant source of anxiety for my mom, that if you...
Yes, the Uptan chapter is very good.
This is what my mom thought upper caste people did every day. We didn't know, but we assumed that all upper caste people bathe with Uptans because or even if they don't, if we do, it's a sign that we are more upper caste than them, if that makes sense. That we know so much that we do it better than you. We are performing your role better than you are performing it. So nobody will ever question us. So it was one of those things, Uptan, sheets.
Lali, the cow. Oh, that was lovely, yeah?
Yeah, it was hilarious. When I was 11 years old,
also
my mom...
sad because in the end she lost the cow.
She lost the cow, but it was when she was around, we had this brick red cow. She was called Lali. And my mom got her because she said, all these Brahmins have cows and Dalits just don't have cows. She said, no, but I'm going to get one. And it doesn't matter if we live in this urban locality where you can't keep a cow. We just keep her in a garage. And the explanation was that the cow will be good for giving us milk and paneer and dahi and all of that. But the real reason was that mom, that was one of the final steps towards being fully acculturated into an upper caste world. That, you said we couldn't keep a cow, we're going to keep a cow. You said we couldn't read and study Sanskrit, we will. You said we couldn't speak in English, we're going to do it better than you do. So there were all these things that I was being taught when I was growing up, not just me, all my siblings, that these nuances, these tricks of what it means to be upper caste, you have to do it better than most people do. And only then you'll stop being questioned. So whether it was getting cow, applying uptan, learning how to tuck your sheets, or being the most fashionable person around, which is why I started writing about fashion, because that was another thing that, you know, Dalits are not, who thinks of Dalits as fashionable? And my mom insisted that you have to be stylish, because that's what upper caste people do.
Your mom's a real character. Huh? I mean, she's like such a strong, you know, her will is so strong.
Yeah.
What's her reaction to the book? And
She read the book. I saw her when she picked it up, she couldn't put it down. She said, I forgot that I was this person that you described me as, that you remember so vividly.
Superwoman, she sounds like.
I
She
see her
possibly
like
is,
that.
yeah.
And she single-handedly pulled me and my siblings through poverty, through days when we didn't have food to eat, through opposition to her two girls going to a good school. So she has been the greatest force around me in my life. She shaped me in who I am. So initially when I started writing this book, she was a little apprehensive, but as I was like, well, I'm going to do it. And she said, okay, you know, I'm proud of you. Go ahead. Not when she read the book, but when I came out. And she said, yeah, I mean, I think you can face the consequences, or if there are any that come, any negative consequences that come with writing this book. If they do come, I think I've raised you to be the kind of person who can face them. And also, you don't live here. So do what you want.
Okay, what I found also great about the book was that, you know, you've managed to kind of make it personal and political, which is difficult. Somehow you've managed to get, you know, the bigger picture of caste in India and of, you know, race politics in the international context, and all that, you know, discriminations at the micro and macro level, political, you know, acts. Jignesh Mevani and, you know, Rohit Vemula, everybody, you've managed to get in all these strands as well, and, you know, and therefore create a picture of contemporary India. So talk about that.
It just didn't make sense to me to talk about my own life. And also, being a Dalit is not just my story. The whole idea was to give a platform to stories like mine, which is why I started Documents of Dalit Discrimination, the Tumblr I talked about. And then I got the opportunity to write this book. And this book was always meant to be a vehicle to shine light on those stories as well, stories that we have ignored, wittingly or unwittingly. We have never talked about Dalit culture, or like the fact that there are so few Dalit journalists, etc., etc. So I wanted to create a bigger picture because I wanted this book to have the maximum impact it could. I mean, if I just wrote my story, it would be a human story that many people have written about. But making it broad, I think, pulls in the idea that this is not just me. It wasn't just a personal story. That caste as a system exists in India and with Indians abroad. So that's what I wanted to create a universe that exists, but somehow we never see it. I just wanted to peel off that film that we have of hundreds of years, actually thousands of years of not seeing castaways as sandpapered the edges, and you know, it's now firmly a part of the system that we live in.
It's so much a part of the system we don't see it.
Exactly. It's invisible. So I wanted to peel that off and show that whatever you do, say, every choice that you make, if you live in India, it's guided by caste. And for me to do that, I couldn't do it with just my story. I had to bring in Rohit Vemula's story, Jignesh Mevani, the story of what it means to be a dark-skinned Dalit woman versus somebody who looks like me. the story of education and reservation in universities, and how Dalit students are forced to commit suicide because they don't get enough support, and how they're called meritless, talentless, when they have fought against circumstances to be where they are, and they deserve to be there. So I wanted to bring all of that in to create the world and to show it as it really is. My story was just the spine from which everything else was supposed to flow out of.
Okay. And do you think that, as we go forward, like the media in India is going to be more diverse? I think your book is remarkable is because still there are very few voices emerging from the Indian English media, which is, like you mentioned, largely, dominated by the upper castes.
From what I've seen, there are really talented writers in English media who are not scared anymore. I think a lot of us have been around for a long time, but we've been scared. People like me who didn't want to talk about what a caste is, or who didn't want to be labeled as a Dalit writer, which also tends to happen. There are people who are not scared, and I think that's a significant difference from what I saw when I started writing. There was a reason why people were scared, because they were worried that their careers would never take off. And stories like that exist. I've written about some of them. I'm not sure the kind of change this book will bring, but at least my coming out, I know for a fact, has allowed people to see Dalits in a different light. There is Dalit media. Why should we just limit ourselves to corporate upper caste media? And I'm calling it upper caste media because it is run by mostly upper caste people. Dalit media is really powerful now, not just online, but we have our own media outlets. There's RTI, which is doing such a good job and which is extremely relevant. And I see those publications coming to the top and getting started, and people becoming really important and finding a voice there. So the idea is that Dalits find a voice that is so strong and so loud that it's impossible for people to ignore it. I think the idea is that here we are, and if you don't pay attention to us right now, then you're losing out. And if there are a lot of us who believe that, I think there is a positive change on the horizon.
So everybody go out and get this book. Coming out is Dalit, a memoir by Yashika Dutt. It is excellent reading, and I'm sure, it'll broaden your horizon, and you'll also kind of enjoy it, which is a bit strange to say, but you will.
I wanted it to be entertaining. I wanted you to laugh. So
some points I did. Okay,
I did my
thank
job.
you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Bye.